And here we are for week 4 of Trib Sports After Dark. It was rivalry week for our big 4 teams with Lewiston facing Clarkston and Moscow facing Pullman. But let's just jump right into this and start with our scores here. So in the Battle of the Bridges, we have Lewiston shutting out Clarkston 46-0. In the Little Battle of the Palouse game, we have Moscow over Pullman 23-13. And then our other scores today, Colfax over Kettle Falls 27-8. ACH over Garfield Palouse 40-12. Asotin beating Riverview 41-26. Kamiah with an upset win over Logos 22-20. That's one we will be talking more about. Prairie over Lapway 72-14. In overtime, we have Potlatch over Clearwater Valley 58-56. And then Salmon River over Lewis County 40-12. And New Plymouth over Grangeville 30-20. We'll start with the biggest game of the day, our Battle of the Bridges. Sam, you were at that game. Talk a little bit about it. First win of the season for Lewiston and Coach Zane Hobart, and it was a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. For the Bengals, it was everything they could have wanted and more. The Bengal defense pitched a shutout, shut out the Bantams through 4 quarters. They had a first-time starting quarterback in sophomore Dallas Richardson, and they had a first-time starting wide receiver in sophomore DJ Wilkerson. And Wilkerson made his speed and made his mark from the get-go. He racked up over 60 all-purpose yards. He had a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and Zane Hobart said that, Lewiston coach Zane Hobart said that you can really tell that he just has great speed. They wanted to start him at the junior varsity level for the first couple of games of the season. He made an appearance late in Lewiston's loss to Coeur d'Alene, and then he was starting and on the field pretty much the whole time in their shutout of Clarkston. It was a pretty great game for Lewiston. Defensively, they were kind of just all over Clarkston. They only allowed just a handful of first downs, and of course, no scores at all. And they came through. Senior Brendan Rice playing linebacker this year, when he previously played safety. He put on 30 pounds in the offseason, and he's one of their largest defenders. And he made 2 interceptions. He said something really cool. He said for the Bengals, I've been playing since I was a little kid and watching all the Battle of the Bridges games. I was just ready. It was my turn, and it's good to execute and be able to beat the Bantams. Obviously, this was the 10th straight win, I believe, for Lewiston over Clarkston. And this 135th edition of the Battle of the Bridges. Lewiston has the clear advantage in this all-time series, just being a larger school and everything. But, for another generation of seniors, they've never lost to Clarkston. They take great pride in that. Both Clarkston and the Lewiston high school communities were out in full force. The bands were there behind the end zone. All the stands were full. The parking lot was a nightmare, as it should be for games like this. And it was just cool to see the whole LC Valley turn out for their kids and cheer on the Bengals and or the Bantams.
Yeah, like you said, 135th edition, definitely got to be one of the oldest football rivalries in the nation. I would think they've been playing for a long time. They used to play multiple times per year back in the early days. But yeah, Sam, you've covered this team a couple times now, this Lewiston team. What was a little bit different about them tonight? Are they kind of settling in with their new coach? And what do you see from them that was just kind of better play on the field compared to a couple of their tough losses so far?
Yeah, Coach Hobart summed it up kind of nicely. On offense, they were just playing loose, and they were trusting their playbook and just really not and they weren't shooting themselves in the foot. Against Post Falls, they had 4 turnovers, each which led to touchdowns on Post Falls' part. In this one, it was the Bengals actually preying on turnovers. Clarkston dropped a kickoff return inside their own 20, inside their own 10 actually, and Lewiston leapt on it and scored a touchdown on the very next play. And so instead of committing those mistakes and falling victim to them, they were kind of feasting and hunting for those mistakes from their opponents and capitalizing on it, which led to a 33-0 halftime lead and a 46-0 win.
Yeah, we'll bounce over to our other huge rivalry game this week. Moscow beating Pullman, a little bit closer game. So that was Moscow 23, Pullman 13. Big win for Moscow. Their coach, Rob Bafus, is from Pullman, used to play for the Greyhounds. He used to be coached by Ray Hobbs, the legendary Pullman coach, and he was apparently a little emotional after the game, getting a big win there in Pullman.
At the field named for Ray Hobbs.
Exactly, at the field named for his old coach. And just a big win for Pullman, kind of a defensive game. Pullman started the game with an interception. Moscow's Riley Cheney intercepted it, and then he also scored the first touchdown of the game for Moscow. So a big game for Cheney and the Bears. He had his touchdown, an 11-yard reception from freshman quarterback Wyatt Cook.
White Cross, yeah.
Wyatt Cross, pardon me. Moscow led 14-0. But then Pullman kind of settled in, and it ended up Pullman shut out Moscow in the second half of the game, got it down to a 2-score game. And what are your guys? I'll open it up to you guys. What are some of your guys' thoughts from this Moscow Pullman game?
Well, to see Moscow, they opened the season with a kind of an upset loss to Grangeville at home. Grangeville, a 3A school, smaller school, definitely punching up their weight. And it was really tough for Moscow. However, talking to Coach Bayfus after they beat Clarkston last week, he said that they've kind of built their defensive identity off of a couple of key moments from that Grangeville game. They held the Bulldogs out of the end zone when Grangeville got into the red zone, not just once, but twice. And with those defensive stops, they kind of developed this kind of hard-fought defensive mentality. These guys, they were battle-tested early against Grangeville. They won big the next week, and they've beaten Clarkston since. And now, now they're 3-1 after a 0-1 start.
They also recovered a fumble, which is pretty important to this game. Yeah. Also, one thing to note is Wyatt Cross threw the ball 31 times.
Wow.
Which is a lot of passes in a high school game especially. So the offense might look a little bit different passing this much. I know that Rob basically said he wants to run the ball, but Cross 31 passes, that's a lot.
So having grown up in this area, I can say Moscow wins over Pullman in football certainly used to be a rarity. The Bears had a season of exceptional, their most successful season, in fact, in recent memory last year. That was, in fact, part of the feature story I did on the concurrent success of the Idaho Vandals, Moscow Bears, and Logos Knights at the time, about a little under a year ago now. We might have been hoping for more of the same if you're a Palouse resident or fan. And the Bears certainly, from that perspective, gave a worrisome showing in their opener. So this is maybe a sign that Moscow momentum continues.
Moscow looking pretty good. Pullman still looking for its first win of the season. And with that, we will move over to some of our other scores from the day. And let's just jump right in to our upset game of the day. That would be Kamiah over Logos. Logos being one of the state favorites at the 2A level. Kamiah, always a good team, but definitely an upset win for them. That was 22-20. Cody, you took the call for this one. Tell us a little bit about that game.
Yes. So, in fact, as I thought this would be a nice segue, my previous comments into this one, Logos, another subject of my story last year, had been on a tear. In fact, Logos had not lost a league contest in almost 3 years prior to this. Was the two-time defending league champion, even defeated the largely untouchable Kendrick Tigers during the regular season last year. And Logos was polling near the top. Sam, you were in the vote. Was Logos currently second in the state?
They were second, you're right.
Yes, yeah. Second in the state media poll. We could have mentioned that, actually. I should have thought of that for this newspaper item. But so Kamiah upsetting the second-ranked team in the state. I believe last year's contest between these teams was not terribly close, as a victory for the Knights. So this is, it is true. There's been a lot of turnover. It was something we were talking about that Logos replaced nearly all of its starting lineup. Well, Logos had a strong start to its season, winning its first couple games. It beat two of the other recent top teams, was Hagerman and someone. It might have seemed as though we could expect the Knights to continue to be the sort of top contender or second place to Kendrick, which ultimately defeated Logos at state last year. So Kamiah upsetting the apple cart here. This came on a last-minute touchdown to pull ahead 22-20, courtesy of Lawson Landmark, kind of the man of the hour, factoring in all three scoring plays, passing for 2 and rushing for 1. Now the Cubs are 3-0 on the season so far. They have to be seen now, I think, as the second favorites for White Pine League behind Kendrick, and I would suspect they may indeed be breaking into the state media polling picture in the very near future. So all around a shakeup, and an exciting result, fascinating. It looks like this was, again, quite the back and forth battle. And, in its own way, it injects some new blood and new excitement into the. I would say this is the prep football upset of the year so far in the Tribune readership area, at least.
Yeah,
So,
the Cubs were on my ballot last week, and they sure will be probably 2 or 3 this week. That's exciting.
And worth noting, Dave Clute, who you just mentioned, their quarterback, he was I believe, a 4-year starter for them. Gone now at the College of Idaho, I believe, playing basketball for them. Kamiah lost some other good players as well. So definitely showing that they're reloading and, as opposed to rebuilding this year. First year coach Garrison Bretz and the Cubs are off to a great start. So definitely a team to watch out for at the 2A level and in the White Pine League. And with that, we will stay with another White Pine League game. Potlatch beating Clearwater Valley 58-56 in overtime. High scoring overtime game. Trevor, tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, what an epic game. It truly was kind of insane. First off, Jay Marshall for Potlatch. He had 6 total touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, and 2 passing touchdowns, and 243 total yards of offense.
We might also note that the Jay Marshall of Potlatch led the Loggers to victory there with his big 243 offensive yard showing, and was responsible for a half dozen touchdowns, either passing or rushing. So yeah, it was kind of a, on paper at least, it was a big battle of clash of these two, high-producing quarterbacks. Wally even had 15 tackles, as Alan Hutchins told me. I spoke with both coaches. In fact, Ryan Ball is a little bit more a man of few words. He agreed it was a great game. Hutchins was more effusive, talking about how proud he was of his boys. And it is true that, again, if the Rams have not been as high level a team as Potlatch in recent memory, so this would have been an upset if Clearwater Valley had pulled it off, and they were the Rams were very close to pulling this one out.
Well, definitely a game, as you guys were kind of saying, where both teams can come away feeling good about themselves from this one. Tough loss for Clearwater Valley, losing in overtime, but they definitely put on a good display. And with that, we will go back through our other scores here real quickly. And as you guys maybe think about your guys' players of the week, Colfax got the win 27-8 over Kettle Falls. Was this the first game of the season for Colfax, Cody?
Yes.
Soton again over Riverview 41-26. Cody Ells ran for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns and passed for another one. Again, Prairie with a blowout win over Lapway 72-14. Prairie still undefeated. Another team to watch out for in the White Pine League and at the 2A level. Salmon River over Lewis County 40-12. New Plymouth over Grangeville 30-20. A long way for Grangeville to go down there to play that one in New Plymouth. Elmira Cooley Heartline 40, Garfield Palouse 12. And I believe that wraps up our other scores. And so we'll bring it back to you, Sam. Who is your player of the game from the Battle of the Bridges, Lewiston's win?
Yeah, Lewiston really was able to run the football with great authority. Credit to the offensive line. Also credit to their lead running back, Sawyer Casey, who's my pick for player of the week. Sawyer Casey racked up nearly 70 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm going to cheat and do a co-player of the week. DJ Wilkerson, who had an absolutely fantastic game. His first varsity start. He racks up, nearly over 60 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns as well.
I'll go next.
All right, Trevor, who you got?
In Potlatch, it's got to be Jay Marshall. Jay Marshall had 6 total touchdowns, 4 rushing, 2 passing, with 243 yards. 6 touchdowns is an insane stat line. Coming away with half a dozen, like Cody said, is very, very impressive. So it's got to be Jay Marshall from Potlatch.
And remember that he scored the winning touchdown and 2-point play.
Yes, he did. So Jay Marshall is my player of the week.
And he's had a couple big games now. I feel like he's going to be a player that we're probably going to be seeing week after week. Every year there's a couple guys that just every year or every week seem to rack up a lot of yards, and he's looking like one of those guys for Potlatch there. Cody, how about you?
Right. So as far as I know, not quite the massive yardage that some other players might have had, but again, loss and landmark of Kamiah, their new quarterback, junior, coming through with 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing. He actually, factored in one way or the other in all 3 touchdowns on the day for the Kamiah Cubs in their famous upset of the Logos Knights. And he ran in the last score with about a minute remaining to nose the Cubs ahead. So he's definitely the man of the hour for the White Pine League, I would think, at this particular moment. And man to watch as the season continues. Again, the Cubs graduate Dave Clute. You're not sure are they going to be able to replace him, but it looks like the right man has stepped up.
And Landmark had 294 yards of total offense too, so that's pretty impressive too.
Okay, that was pretty massive yardage.
Oh, yes, that is Lawson Landmark of Kamiah getting a nod there. And then I will wrap up with going back to one of our Big Four rivalry games of the day. Going to go with Riley Cheney of Moscow. In a rivalry game, momentum is everything, and he not only got an interception on defense, but then also got the first touchdown of the game for Moscow. And the Bears led the rest of the way from there in what ended up being just a 10-point victory for them.
And maybe we should offer our apologies in advance if it turns out that his name is actually Ryle, as was a matter of contention among this staff before this podcast.
Yes, we can call him Cheney for now. Hopefully we're saying that part right. But big congrats to Moscow and Cheney on their win and all our other area victorious teams today. Rivalry weekend is now over for the Big Four, and we'll continue our season on with Week 5 next week.
Saturday has come and gone, and we're going to talk some college football, starting with the Vandals, who beat Utah Tech and to improve to 2-1. Trevor, what did you see at the Kibbie Dome on Saturday?
First off, the Vandals beat Utah Tech 20-6. They didn't allow a single touchdown. Utah Tech only got into the Vandals' territory 4 times, and they only had 2 field goals from it. They got 2 50-yard field goals. One was a punt and one was an interception. So it was absolutely dominance. It was dominance from the defense. The Vandals also had 286 yards rushing, so they dominated on the ground. It was just a very good showing from the Vandals overall.
So you mentioned the ground game being a really strong suit. Over 280 yards in the ground. Yet the passing game maybe not being as strong. Do you see the passing game as something that Idaho is going to have to tune up?
I think it's something that they need to work on this week, yes.
Yeah.
Because against Wazoo, in week 1, they had 33 yards. Against week 2 opponent, St. Thomas, Wood actually had 281 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. And then in this game, he threw just for 119 yards with 1 touchdown. So, I mean, the passing game is something I think that they need to address. Something's not clicking. I know that they really worked on their short and intermediate routes, so it's like they call them layups. It's just short dump offs and then quick intermediate routes. And that was working against St. Thomas, and then they just abandoned it against Utah Tech. And I'm not saying they need to panic at all. It's gonna work fine. The running game obviously is incredible, so they don't have to worry about that. And Wood could definitely scramble as well and run on option plays. You also had an 18-yard touchdown option play against Utah Tech here. The passing game is something that they need to be a little bit concerned about and work on going forward.
And you look at, obviously, Idaho, the transfer portal, they've been pretty good at developing wide receivers over the last couple of years. Obviously, Jason Eck was, and now he's gone to New Mexico. But, they had Jermaine Jackson and Hayden Hatton for a while, and now they had Jordan Dwyer and Mark Hamper break out into the scene last year. But who's kind of the new target?
First off, I got to mention Ryan Giziaro.
Yeah.
He has... in all fall camp, you could see him working up the depth chart. He was just rising and rising and rising. And then he's, I think, leading this team in receiving right now. And also, I think he has multiple touchdowns over the past three weeks. So he's a guy that's worked up. Tony Harsty, kind of like the slot guy, kind of intermediate guy. He's pretty important to this offense. They haven't really used him much so far. But in fall camp and in practices, it looks like he's one of Wood's favorite targets, but they aren't using him very much. And the third guy is Emerson Cortez Menjivar. He is a deep threat. He's kind of a gadget play guy. But really, it's Ryan Giziaro who is the most important wide receiver to this team right now.
Solid. And kind of flip to the other side of the ball and watching the battle of the Palouse between Wazoo and Idaho. I remember Isaiah King was just all over the field, super effective in that game against an FBS opponent. And he's only gotten better, it seems, in the last couple of weeks. What do you need to see from Isaiah King and from this Vandal defense to give you confidence that they can make some noise in the conference?
I think they've already shown it.
Yeah,
they against St. Thomas, they led a lot of rushing yards. That was pretty rough. But against Utah Tech, they only had 98 rushing yards allowed, 111 passing yards. They really are a dominant defense. Against Wazoo, they were really good too. Only letting Wazoo score 13. One touchdown in that game. So, I don't know. They've shown it already. Isaiah King, Dylan Lane, Donovan Parham, Deuce Blundman, guys like that. Those guys are important to this defense, and they're really showing out recently. And Isaiah King had 7 tackles against Utah Tech. Dylan Lane had 9. Those linebackers are really good, and it's a really good core for Idaho. The defense has already shown that they can be dominant, so I think the only concern is a little bit of the offense going into the Big Sky play. But transitioning to WSU, tell me about WSU's recent game.
Yeah, so the Cougs, after a 2-0 start, of course, just, edging Idaho 13-10, and then taking care of business against San Diego State 36-13, they went down to Texas, went down to Denton, Texas, and laid an egg, losing 59-10. It's arguably, I don't want us to be dramatic, so the worst loss in program history, but it's kind of up there.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody's, all due respect to North Texas, but I hadn't really heard much about them. I knew they were on the schedule, and they're not that much of a football powerhouse. And Wazoo, with a much richer football history, goes down there and is just totally woefully ill-prepared. Jackson Potter, their sophomore starter, threw 3 interceptions before halftime. He was benched before halftime. The other quarterbacks they brought in, Julian Duggar, and then Zevi Eckhouse, couldn't do much. Eckhouse was solid, completing 7 of 10 passes, but he missed 2 wide-open receivers deep, which would have been touchdowns or big gains. And then he did run for the Cougars' lone touchdown. Granted, he was facing North Texas reserves. But the Cougs, it wasn't just the quarterbacks that were kind of off. It was the offensive line could barely contain North Texas. The defense just kind of, they were a bend-don't-break unit for the last 2 games, and they were breaking way more. North Texas kind of opened they were throwing the ball all over the place, moving the ball with authority, and they had like several 75 or 80-yard touchdown drives where WSU just looked powerless in that 90-degree sun.
WSU gave the ball up 5 times?
5 times in the first half.
In the first half. And they started their average field position was like the 34-yard line, right? 38-yard line, something like that.
Yeah, in the first half, North Texas you're right, an average starting field position to the 39-yard line. And so they scored their first touchdown, like a 75-yard drive, North Texas did. And then they scored, their next 4 touchdowns on gaining a total of 93 yards. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a quarterback competition going on this week, correct?
There is, yeah. After Potter's 3 picks, no touchdowns, he was solid, obviously. Other than that, I would maybe that's way sugarcoating it. 16 of 23, had some great deep throws. But when he was missing bad, and it was falling in the paws of North Texas. And so Potter was benched before halftime, and Jimmy Rogers said on Monday that he will be in a quarterback there. He's reopening the quarterback competition, and so it'll be a 3-way battle between Jackson Potter, senior Zevi Eckhouse, who started the Holiday Bowl, and many, myself included, expected to be the starter week 1, but that wasn't the case. And then Julian Duggar, the transfer from Pitt, who's much more of a running quarterback.
What do you expect to see there?
Yeah, realistically, I think it's a two-man race between Potter and Eckhouse, all due respect to Duggar. In the comments and what we've seen on tape, Rogers has just said that Duggar has struggled with reading defenses. He has kind of like a fixed read in mind, and he can't really adjust when a defense, covers up his main guy. And so he hasn't completed a pass yet. He's attempted just like 5 or so passes this season, in limited action, but he hasn't completed one yet. And then Eckhouse and Potter. Potter, obviously, he's the future of Wazoo football in an ideal world. He's got great depth, a great arm, and the ability to manage the 2-minute drive, which we saw in the Idaho game. But he missed some reads. Josh Meredith was wide open on one of Potter's picks. Instead, he tried to force it into a window to Tony Freeman, and North Texas picked him off. Linebacker baited him. And so you just see Jackson Potter he's raw and undeveloped. He still has a lot to know and grow. Whereas Zevi is a little bit more of a finished product in terms of where he will be by the end of his college career, and has that leadership and has the ability to lead the offense, but still obviously leaves some to be desired in terms of his deep ball being inaccurate, and he takes maybe too many sacks or whatnot. And so anyway, that's all going to boil itself out. Obviously not ideal what do we have this weekend? But the Apple Cup.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Washington's coming to town.
Going into the Apple Cup, what kind of adjustments do you expect to see from Wazoo?
Well, I think, who knows, regardless of who the quarterback is, I think it's probably going to be Eckhouse. I know we fell into the same trap leading up to the Idaho game, and it ended up being Potter. But whether it's Potter or Eckhouse at the QB position, they just got to clean up a lot. The whole team's got to clean up a lot of things. They got to clean up getting on and off the field. They had to waste some timeouts in previous games because they weren't fully set at the beginning of drives or whatnot. Special teams has been very messy. They need to fix that. Ryan Harris kind of bobbled a punt, and that gave North Texas one of their short fields, was just like a 20 or so yard punt because Ryan Harris bobbled the snap, and then he got the punt off. It was almost blocked, and that would have been even more of a disaster. But just all these little things that they're doing that need to be corrected. There's mental mistakes along the offensive line where they're false start penalties or backing them up. There's pass interference penalties that the secondary was hit with that extended North Texas drives. And so they just got to clean up the mental side of the game and be far more prepared than they were in Denton in order to even have a chance against UW this Saturday.
Absolutely. So again, Wazoo's playing UW at 4:30 at Pullman and at Giesa Field, and Idaho is playing San Jose State at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So just wrapping up the final whistle. This is Sam Taylor. I'm Trevor Junt. Thank you for listening to the final whistle, season 2.